Hey everybody, we're back at All American Gold and Silver Buyers in Apopka, Florida. And today we're not just going to pick up some silver, we're actually going to have a conversation with George, the owner. Stay tuned. Hey everybody, and welcome back to another edition with the Florida Stacker. Today I am pleased to introduce you to George. George is the owner and founder of All American Gold and Silver in Apopka, Florida. For those of you unfamiliar with Apopka, Florida, it's in the Orlando, Florida, Central Florida area of the state. I've got some questions for him. He's my go-to bullion dealer, and I'm glad you're here with us today. So we'll just get started with our first question, George, and that is, how long have you been dealing with bullion, coins, and precious metals?
Well, I opened up my first business in 1980. So I started dealing with it at that time, but I started long before that. As a kid, I was a coin collector. And that's going back to 1955 when I started doing that.
Oh, wow. Okay. So you were around when we came off the gold standard then.
Oh, yeah. The first few years of my collecting time, everything was silver. All the dimes, quarters, and halves were silver. There was no such thing as Clyde coins back then.
Yeah, that makes sense. Question for someone that wasn't around during that time. Did people know to kind of hoard some of their silver that understood the value of precious metals at that time, or was it kind of a natural transition?
Pretty much in 1964, everybody knew it was coming to an end, and that's when it really got hoarded. But actually in the early 60s and the late 50s was the beginning of the roll era of collectors. People got into collecting rolls of everything. So it was just a natural thing. Instead of collecting one 1962 half, they would get a roll of them.
Oh,
and
wow.
That would be a big error for those.
I see. Okay, so there's a lot of folks then that probably have some unwrapped bank rolls that they've had in their collections for a long time.
I see them all the time.
Oh, you do? Okay, all right. Do you have to kind of look at the enders on the end to kind of get an idea what might be on the inside, or are they usually like the same year and mint mark?
Most of the time they'll have it marked right on the wrapper itself. What is in there? And they're, as I say, in their solid date.
Okay.
Whereas if they have them loose in a bag, then of course it could have been made up of original rolls, but now they're not loose. But still, they're nice.
Okay. All right. So, hey, George, can you tell me real quick, what are some of the hot sellers, and what do you typically get phone calls from your customers on with regards to what they not only want to buy, but also what they want to sell?
Most of the stuff that I get calls on is the bullion items, because that's what I use in advertising. And the biggest seller is the 1 ounce generic silver rounds. Okay, and by generic, it just means it's made by a private mint rather than a government issue. Right. And then second in sales would be the American Eagle silver coins. Those are the next biggest seller.
Okay, all right. Well, those are the kind of things I'm looking to pick up as well. A question for you real quick. What are you currently selling your silver American Eagles and your generic silver 1 ounce rounds for today? With spot being, I think, about $18.60.
Yeah, at the price at the 1850 mark when I first come in this morning, but I adjust it as the day goes on. If it goes down, I'll adjust it lower, and if it goes up, I'll adjust it a little higher. But normally I try to sell my silver rounds at spot price, and the silver Eagles at $1.75 over.
That's an amazing price.
So that's what I base it on today. So this morning I came in and set the price $18.50 an ounce for rounds and 10 ounce bars, and the American Eagles would be $1.75 over, so that would be $20.25.
All right. Well, that's definitely the best price in town, I can tell you that. From your perspective, what are you most interested in buying as well from customers? Do you frequently take in more of the stuff that you're selling, like the generic silver rounds and the silver American Eagles, or is it more collections or?
Collections are spotty. Lots of times, unfortunately, it's a situation where somebody passes away, and their children just really don't have an interest in coin collecting, and then they'll come in and sell me the collection. And being a collector at heart from way back in the 50s, I mean, I really get a kick out of looking at a collection. You see a lot of neat stuff that you haven't seen for years, whereas the silver rounds and silver bars and American Eagles, that's the bulk of my business. That's something I can count on coming and going every day. So that's very important to me, getting that in, and that is the majority of the business.
All right. Well, thank you for that. One more question, and this is a burning question that a lot of folks on YouTube like to discuss. And George, I'm going to ask you, what are your thoughts on the gold to silver ratio? And do you think it's still a relevant ratio to look at, considering how much has changed with silver's ties to industry as time has progressed, and gold still being mostly tied as a monetary metal? Do you think it's still a relative ratio for stackers to follow?
Well, as the ratio has increased and increased and increased, usually everything that you read is, the ratio is too high. The ratio is too high. It needs to come down. And I think in the future it will come down. If you go back to when the Hunt brothers drove silver up to $50 an ounce.
Right.
At that time, when that hit a peak of 50, gold was at about 825.
Right.
That was not even 17 to 1. Okay, so that's a big difference in the ratio. Then it went up to the 40s, and it went into the 70s, and today we're at about 89 to 1, which is just phenomenally high in my opinion.
Yes.
Okay, and I think it's going to come down. In fact, you see so many articles that are saying that in the short run, gold may outperform silver, but in the long run, silver will outperform gold.
George, during the last time that the gold to silver ratio was so tight, as you mentioned, 17 to 1, were a lot of people coming in and trading silver into gold? Or do you think that's something that now, with the ratio being so wide, that people are considering for the future?
Well, back then, it was the first time that silver had ever taken a jump. Okay, and I mean, they're used to silver being, in the $3 to $5 to $6 range and stuff like that. And all of a sudden it took off, and in a very short span of time went all the way up to 50. So there was, most of the activity was on silver at that time, and it was just dumping.
Yeah.
I mean, we had lines at our store all day long, people coming in, selling bags and bags and bags of silver.
Oh, wow. Did you have to kind of stop the flow of bullion coming in there then for a while?
No, because we'd, if we started to get a little low on funds, then we'd ship it to a refinery, and they'd be melting it down.
I see. Okay. All right. So the front door stayed open then during that time.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So that moves me to my next question, and that is, does business for you tend to pick up or slow down when we see spot price falling or rising? Like today, the last 2 days, we've seen a pretty good jump in both gold and silver. How would you say your business performs during a rising market as compared to a declining market in spot price?
Well, this is going to sound strange when I answer it this way, but the worst thing for my business is nothing happening.
Yeah.
Okay. If nothing happens, if it's just staying stagnant for a month or so, business is slow. If it's going up, I do good business. If it's going down, I do good business. Because there's always somebody who's saying when it's going up, well, I better get in before it gets higher.
Right.
And there are other people saying, well, I'm going to take a profit on this and then wait for it to go down again. And when it's going down, there are people saying, I'm going to bail out. And there's other people saying, hey, I need to buy more because it's going back up. So as I say, an up market or a down market is good for business.
There you go.
Stagnant isn't.
All right. Well, I'm definitely interested in watching what's going on, especially with gold prices now moving closer to $1,700. It's getting more difficult for people to buy large 1 ounce, even half ounce gold bullion coins. Those that are, like myself, that are younger with young families. Does most of your gold business pertain around the fractional gold coins, or do you do more business with the larger gold coins?
Well, I have a lot of customers that buy the large gold coins, but then they will also buy some small ones in addition to it. It's not that they can't afford to buy the 1 ounces. They may want to buy 5, 6, 8 1 ounce pieces, but they also want to get the 10th ounce pieces. That's
Yes.
the two most popular ones, so that they have small denominations. Because everybody that's investing in gold is investing in it not for it to go up $100, but for it to go up thousands of dollars.
Right.
And when that happens, they want to be prepared with some smaller pieces.
There
too.
you go. Something that can move that's more liquid.
Right.
Okay. So you said the 1 ounce and the 1/10 are the most popular
That's
sizes?
the two most popular, and that's the two sizes that were most made.
Correct.
There was the biggest demand for them, and that's what got made the most. There's not near as many 1/4 ounce and half ounce American Eagles out there in the market as there is 10th and 1 ounce.
Right. Yep. That does make sense. All right, so moving on to my next question for you, George. If you were a new stacker or a precious metals accumulator, sometimes folks don't like the term stacker, where would you start today, and what would you recommend a new stacker or precious metals accumulator to start accumulating?
Well, again, I have some customers who will only buy the cheapest thing that they can buy because they want to accumulate the most silver they can for the least amount of money.
Yeah.
I have other ones who have friends that are into it maybe and have convinced them they should stick with the government issue items. So there's no right or wrong way. I just tell people just get your feet wet. If it's a matter of your budget allows you to buy 1 ounce of silver once a week, do it. Just be consistent with it.
Yep.
Keep buying it. Don't go taking $1,000 on your credit card and going buying it to where you're paying interest on it. Do it gradually. That whatever meets your budget. Myself, I've been doing this for a long, long time. What I'm accumulating now is for my children and my grandchildren, and it's just a matter of the end of the month comes. I have a few $100s I don't need for anything else. Then I'll buy some and then put away. But every month I buy some.
There you go. I talk about on my channel the concept of pay yourself first. And what I like to do is I like to immediately make my gold and silver purchases on payday, which is today. Mm-hmm. That way, I know I've already taken care of myself and my family before, the pressures of buying something I don't need creep up throughout the weekend. Now I'm on a tight budget because I've already picked up my bullion. So, no, I agree with that philosophy. And that brings me to my last question for you today, George, and that's at today's pricing. Considering where you feel spot price will be over the next couple of years, would you recommend focusing more on silver, more on gold, or some sort of mix of the two?
I would prefer you get into both if possible. Now, not everybody's budget is going to allow them to do it, but I have some people who don't have a big budget, but they'll accumulate some silver. Maybe they'll get 50, 60 ounces of silver, and they'll take some of that, bring it in and trade it to me for a 10th ounce gold or a couple of 10th ounce gold or some other things like that, so that they have some of each.
There you go.
Because just accumulating silver can, if you buy a lot of it, it can become cumbersome. It is bulky and takes up a lot of space.
It does.
So I've had a lot of people that just do it because of that. They might end up with 3 monster boxes of silver rounds or silver eagles, and all of a sudden they say, I'm out of space, and they'll come in and trade some to me for gold. So we know that they go up together. Okay, may not be exactly the same proportion, but they are going up together. So why not diversify so you can take advantage of both?
Well, that's a great response. I share the same sentiment. Those that view my channel see that I've gotten a little bit more gold as far as its dollar amount is concerned, but I was concerned as a new stacker delaying too long on purchasing gold and therefore not getting in when the price was affordable for me.
Right.
So we'll go ahead and pause for a second so George can answer the phone. Hey everybody, and welcome back. So we're back from seeing George at All American Gold and Silver in Apopka, Florida. We picked up some silver, some 90% silver, a couple of half dollars and dimes, as well as a couple of silver American Eagles. And we'll go over those here in just a minute. But first, thank you for viewing this video. To my subscribers, thank you for subscribing. If you haven't subscribed, please do consider subscribing. I am trying to get this channel up to 1,000 subscribers like all other YouTube channels, and I can't do that without your support. Greatly appreciate it. Thank you for taking your time out of the day to tune in with me today. As far as questions are concerned for George, please leave your questions in the comments section below. And then after about a week's time has gone by, I'll collect those questions. I'll take them with me on my next trip up to see George after the first of the month. And we'll talk about some of the questions that you have. And I'll try to schedule another interview with him in the future around your questions. All right, so now let's jump into the pickups. And first, we've got our 2 silver American Eagles. So I am working on this tube here of random date Eagles. Got a combination of Eagles from Texas Precious Metals, trying to fill this one up here. And the first one we picked up was a 2009. I've got a couple of 2009s. So maybe we'll work on building a tube of these 09s. Nice looking coin. And this one I thought was a little more interesting. So he showed me some random date Eagles, and this here is a 1988. And it's in real good condition, so I couldn't pass it up. My first 88 that will go into the random Eagles bin. Very nice looking coin. Then I needed about, let's see here, for the Mercury dimes. Yeah, I needed 24 Mercury dimes to complete this $5 roll. So I did pick up 24 Mercury dimes to complete this tube. So now I've got 2 complete tubes of Mercury dimes. I'm sitting at about $40 in face of dimes, of which 30 is in the Roosevelts, and I've got now $10 in these Mercury dimes. And then for the kid, continuing on our dimes. I needed 15 Roosevelt dimes, so check this. I brought him my mixture of 90%, but he sold me a whole tube of 1962s. So one of his customers sold these to him yesterday. These are all 1962s in stunning condition. I'd call this AU, or almost uncirculated. So I traded him, as mentioned, I traded him 35 random, just fully circulated, nasty Roosevelt dimes for these nice AU condition 1962s. George is the man. Thank you, George, for that. I like doing this because, you know, you can always sell this just for the same price, right? You can sell this. Go to your coin shop, go to your bullion dealer, any of the online dealers. I can sell this as 90% silver, but to a collector, you know, maybe someone likes 1962, maybe it was the year they were born, maybe they like the uncirculated looking dimes. Very little wiggle because very little silver loss. Overall, that was a great deal. And now we move on to the kids. And I like to pick up something for the kids here and there, as you saw in a previous video. And so today, while I was seeing George, I said, hey man, can I take a look at your half dollars? And he had these nice looking 1950s Benjamin Franklin's. Pretty good condition for constitutional silver. So I'll give this one here to my son, this one to my daughter, and their stack will continue to grow, which is now approaching 5 ounces of silver each. Not bad. I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in today and encourage you to think about your financial future and to pay yourself first. When you get your paycheck, whether it be a couple $100 or even just 20 bucks, go down, grab some silver, save up, grab some gold. It's a great way to save, and I definitely recommend it. Until next time, everybody, we'll see you then.
Thank you for watching our video. I hope you subscribe to our YouTube channel.